Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to the debut of the Xtreme TV show. I'm joined at my time by two guests tonight. Actually, it's a very special one who we've not had recently, and that's Dalton. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Hello, folks. How's it going? I am doing well.
Good to hear that. And of course, at my side, typically, as always, the real Dr. V. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, boys and girls.
So I see we're at energy level 3. We're going to pop this up. Witcher Season 1, Episode 1. We were expanding into the TV realm a little bit here. We wanted to debut this show and talk a little bit about the handsome Henry Cavill debut. I wanted to go ahead and go first and talk a little bit about my background coming into this, and I was going to ask you guys what yours is before we actually talk a little bit about the episode and what we hope it turns into. So for me, I played the game a little bit. I think I got about halfway through. My computer died, never got back to it. I don't play a lot of games these days, but I thought it was okay. What I liked about it a lot, though, was the fact that it was, I think, a Polish group that made the game, and I guess there's a series of books which I have not read that have, some stories and everything too. And so when I saw that this was actually coming on to Netflix, I was intrigued for two reasons. One, it's got handsome Henry Cavill in it, who I thought looked great for the role. Mads Mikkelsen's my boy. I love him a lot. I thought he has a certain majestic look about him that Henry doesn't. That being said, I think Henry seems to fit this role perfectly. And as a surprise for everybody listening, I like to just go ahead and get this off my chest because it's the best thing I'll say all night tonight, and that's this. I can imitate, after watching only episode 1 of The Witcher, of Henry Cavill, and it goes a little something like this. Okay, there you go. So if you're watching the show, you know exactly what that means. But Henry Cavill, I think, does a great job in here. I think he looks the part, he sounds the part, he's got a good accent to it. His use of a sword, I think, is pretty good there too. But I thought after the first episode, it was interesting enough where I'm going to watch the second one and possibly the third. And I also like, for the second reason, it seems like it's a bit episodic. So I think what it's trying to do is be a little bit more faithful to the books and maybe not so much the video game, but there's definitely some crossover. And I think some of the things that happen in this first episode that we'll talk about in a moment come up to that. So, Dalton, let me ask you first. How familiar are you with The Witcher? What are your initial thoughts?
I'm somewhat familiar with the books and I'm somewhat familiar with the games. Most of what I know is derived from trolling around the internet and looking at wikis and things of that nature. I'm actually kind of more familiar with the actual lore that the books and material are based on than I am the actual storylines and so forth. But I get sort of the basic osmosis of these are the characters, these are their relationships, these are the storylines, yada yada yada. Um, I'm gonna have to disagree with you though, Rob, on handsome Henry Cavill because
You
that's
don't think
kind of
he's
the
handsome?
well, no, he is handsome, and that's kind of the problem. Because half of the time he plays it like the old grizzled, battle-worn sort of brawler barbarian, and the other half of the time he plays it like the stalwart hero, and neither of them really work because of his physicality. The fact that he kind of hulks and lumbers about because he's still built like Henry Cavill, and he's about a foot taller than literally every other person on the screen at any given time, and that works a little bit for the moments where he has to do the physical, like actual fighting and whatnot. But for the character, I'm not sure it works because he plays it as though he should be broken and weary and kind of aged and broken, kind of like King Theoden in Lord of the Rings Two Towers, and yet he's built like a model carved out of stone. So it's a little bit jarring when he goes from I am this dark, mysterious figure who can hide in the shadows and be all mysterious and whatnot, and then he's standing head and shoulders above everyone else and lumbering about with the force of a bull in a china shop. And then he also does the heroic thing where it's like, okay, well then why are you grizzled and dirty? That it's this weird dissonance. I mentioned it on my Twitter when I did my kind of reaction to it. It's a very weird dissonance of which hero archetype am I supposed to be going with here? Because he's not really fitting in either of them, and it's very jarring.
Sounds like what you're really saying is which witch is which.
Wah, wah,
All right,
wah.
Doctor. What about you? Your initial thoughts?
Well, my background in this is I did not play the second one, but I did the Wikipedia for the second game because I didn't have access to the game.
Hmm.
I played the third game, the most recent one. Such a great, beautiful game, great open world. And then it just really captures basically what this character is. He's part of an order. Like they basically, I don't know if they're going to show it on the TV series or not. Explain why he is what he is, why he's a mutant and stuff. Basically, like he was willing to augment with their process. They augment themselves permanently, so they can basically take on these basically your mythical beasts and stuff, creatures and monsters. But yeah, I can agree with Dalton as far as he's saying like he's kind of pretty in some points, and then other points he's just kind of like Wolverine, give me a beer.
Yeah, and I could chalk it up to him
uh,
just being kind of like
but
handsome man meat or
but
something, but that's on the
they
director.
they do address like they do address in this series as far as that Witchers are they're unemotional, and some people value that them they're jealous because they don't get anger, they don't get sad and all stuff.
Yeah, they don't
But
trigger easily.
no, which is great for their job, I guess. But yeah, I was really hooked after watching like the first like what half an hour of this show, and I looked at this, I was like 60 minutes. And then I looked at the next episode, 60 minutes. I was like, this is what the Mandalorian should have been.
Well,
Instead, they got
not
30
having
minutes of
seen
it.
that, I don't know how to compare it. And I know there's a lot of shows out now that are
Well,
real hot.
I like if it's a show and it. I like show TV series versus movies because they're not rush plots. They can branch it out more, do more stuff. And I like the fact that they're taking it serious. If they're gonna do branch off the books and stuff stories, giving it a full hour really helps out. And the fact that and if they do it well, and I thought they've been doing it well. This very first episode, I was hooked into it as far as the story. Um, as for someone who's never played the games, never is just first walking this blindly, they might be a little interested, bored in the first couple minutes. But I mean, like how this show starts off, we see him in the swamps battling this giant like tarantulas or spider thing right from the get go. We're seeing action. Um, and I just felt bad like after he kills it. Like I felt bad for like for Roach, his horse.
Hmm.
This guy carry that mucky, nasty thing on the his back. Ugh.
Yeah,
But
so like,
I felt
yeah,
bad for the deer. The deer
yeah,
he just kills because
because
Reed's
he does it
in the
off
beginning
screen.
there. It's like,
well yeah. I love that how he came back. He's like, here, you want something like food? He's like, I'm full. I eat some venison. I'm like, did he eat the whole entire deer? Or did he just cut off and like put it in a pouch for later on, like
Oh yeah, I'm
snacks?
sure he used it all. Well, we're not going to go over the entire plot and everything else there too. I wanted to kind of hit some of the highlights, just our, initial gestalt wow, because for me, like I say, I liked it enough to say I'm going to at least watch the second episode. I've heard, generally speaking, that it picks up a little bit after a couple episodes in Dalton. I know you've power watched it, and Doctor, I know you've seen a few episodes more than I have. So just having seen the first one, so, just go a little bit farther along is, yeah, initially they hook you with an action piece to get you set up, to get used to seeing them. Just some general thoughts, no matter what. I think some of the CGI wasn't great. I thought some of it was okay. That being said, it didn't offend me. It wasn't like these, summer blockbuster movies where it seems like it's a green screen, you know, extreme type movie. But I gotta say this: I really, really love the set pieces. I really, really love the lighting of it. It feels very big budget, very rich. That I can watch rather than watching a little character on screen, 100 miles away while green screens are zooming around and stuff. But they also, too, the thing I think is really great is that there seems to be such a great amount of like detail, not just like in his wig and his outfits, but all the set pieces and everything else there too. I thought, okay, I don't know much about this world, and they're showing it to me gloomy, but then they're showing some other things, and there's some good contrast. Like when he goes and he ends up seeing the wizard that's got this imaginary garden, with all these naked ladies running around picking fruit and stuff for him, and it's not a juvenile fantasy world, it's an adult world. And I think a part of that has to do because, again, the book's written, I think, by European authors and everything. They have a different sensibility of it. The whole sex thing's not a shock or whatever. But ultimately,
Hmm.
watching this as it went on, I thought they did a very patient job of setting things up. So even if you can't remember the 50 million names that are being flown around, from the monsters to the names and all that, you don't get that. You can go, okay, this guy's going here to meet this person because of this. Okay, these two things, more a quandary. Let me make a decision. Okay, end of episode, boom, and they set it up for like episode 2. So Dalton, let me ask you, going into this episode, I know you said you thought there were some good things and bad ways that he played it, and I could agree with you. And I think that's a bit on a director, because he should have him be consistent all the way through, or at least get it shot that way. But overall, was there anything that really jumped out at you that made me say, "Hi, I want to watch the second episode"? Any major pluses?
Like you were saying, the atmosphere and the stylization is very worthwhile, and I actually would prefer a little bit less in regards to the action scenes, because I just enjoy watching these characters just sort of navigating this. I like the little sort of social moments of these
Well,
characters having banter with one another. This
bring out the
is
gimp.
this character, and this is her thing, and this is this character, and this is his thing, and so on and so forth. Um, as far as like pilot episodes go, this I thought was really good. It didn't succumb to the usual pilot episode issue of we've got to establish our tone and we are not really sure where we're going with it. No, they're fairly sure where they're going with it from the get-go. The only thing that I thought
When it's
dragged
all
for
said
me
and done,
in regards to
there
like the
can
actual
be
plot was the
only
whole
one. Bang!
Geralt being like, "Oh, I don't believe in, degrees of good and evil. I don't believe in making, difficult choices. I'm just here to do what I do." And it's like, "Okay, but you need to be smarter than that if you're doing all this monster hunting and also um never making moral choices, or it got very repetitive, this whole I don't believe in lesser evils or making choices in regards to this or that or the other, and it's just like, well, goody for you, but why do I care again then? Like, what?
Exactly. I'm all for you living the libertarian lifestyle, but damn it, you got to have something that makes me go, okay, that's kind of cool. I mean, contrast it with something else if you want to go that way, or just shut your mouth and talk less and do more, and let us watch what you do and let us discover that along the way. Stop stating it so
and,
much.
and, and it wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't the exact same lines, like an exact same scene, basically like repeated over again. And I get that it was for like comedic contrast of how this, wizard character that he's dealing with reacts versus how his little, femme fatale friend there reacts and everything. But the humor drained from it thoroughly because he is so stone-faced through the entire thing. And deadpan humor can work, but when everyone else is doing the sort of flamboyant character work and he's just sat there stone-faced, it's a little bit like, okay, these two kinds of humor could work individually, but they're not meshing well, and it's really making this awkward. This is no longer funny.
Yeah, and as we go over to the doctor to see what he thinks about that, I just want to add on to that. And one of the things I did mention before, but some of the realistic things I liked, is that I thought the violence was very adult-like as well, and with some of the comic stuff in here, I'm not sure if they're trying to have both, if it was unintentional, or if that's just the nature of the universe. So to me, as a watcher of The Witcher for the first time, not knowing too much about it, I'm going, okay. First episode was solid. I wonder if that tone will continue, because I actually liked, like you said, a little less action, a little more of just the social part to it. So, Doctor, what about you? Any big things popping out too that you want to
Well,
mention for people?
the dialogue was great in this. Just from the get go, when he walks in there, he meets the girl, and she's talking about, yeah, like the mage is the wizard. He's great. I sold him my dog for giving me some coin. I got like 10 quid or whatever she got, and like obviously you learn that she killed her dog on purpose. It wasn't that because it died. She killed it. She murdered it for coin. Uh, this and then like he meets the one woman. I think it's Renfrey. She's
Mm-hmm.
we learn that she has a vendetta against the mage. She wants to kill him, and like you said, he's supposed to choose from the lesser two evils. him being a character who basically he does what's right, but that sometimes he hesitant. Like you said, he's emotionless. But I love the scenery. I love the whole feel of it. You get immersed in this world. You feel like I'm playing the game again. Like it's
Yeah, there was a scene
so
in there where he meets her after, he's bending down by a stream picking up some herbs, and anybody that watches the game's popping because they know he's gonna do a potion, but they don't dump everything he can do all at once at you. So I do like that deliberate pacing to it. So this at this point I was going, oh, is it going to be more like the game because so many people played it and it's more recent, or are they really trying to go to the books? Because I don't know anything about the books, but I've heard that they do a really faithful job with a lot of little details and Easter eggs if you've read the books too, and they can set them up that way so it can be loosely based where if you don't watch the first episode, maybe you can watch the second or third and maybe pick up from there, then go back and rewatch a little bit. Don't know how that'll change, but as of right now, it's a decent setup.
yep. Actually, I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to watching more episodes. Uh, like I said, the whole atmosphere of this really draws you into this thing. You could have been something else, and I just wouldn't have enjoyed it. I love medieval, the Dark Ages, mythical creatures, good versus evil, you know. And I don't, and there wasn't too much overuse of CGI. It wasn't like Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, where you had like 20 guys and you multiplied them by like 100.
Hey,
You
I'm
know,
gonna sound like maybe I'm trolling some people. So, Dalton, I don't know if you watched it. I assume you did, like everybody, but for me, even though I'd like to stay away from battles on a grand scale for the most part, I think they're just disconnected to me. They don't really mean much. I thought, I think it's called the Nilfgaard, the people that were coming over and they had their battle. I didn't really care for all that, but what I liked about it was like the unexpected violence where like the king and queen are there on the field and all of a sudden he takes like an arrow to the face and it just drops. And I thought the violence was done realistic and the sword play I thought was decent for what it was. A lot of times I get nitpicky with that stuff because those swords are heavy and swinging them's got its own thing. I mean, it's not a light one like a rapier that I've used, for recreational purposes. But again, he's a big dude. He shows a skill element with it. So, what did you think about, like, say, the violence or just some of the adult themes to it?
This show, as far as like violence and adult themes, reminded me a lot of a really, really underappreciated series that used to be on one of the main networks. It was called Legend of the Seeker. It was back in, I want to say, like 2009, 2010. And as far as that goes, I think that series probably did it better. But I'm not a big fan of like hand-to-hand combat on the best of days. But it was okay. Most of the time when an action scene happened, I was like, okay, let's get to the next thing. I want to see how this act like. To me, fighting is a means to an end, not an end in itself. So I get very bored with action scenes very quickly if it's not something interesting happening.
Yeah, and to me, I thought the
oh,
battle scene for what it was, and Doctor, I'll ask you, maybe because you saw it too, but I thought the battle scene was better than the crappy one in Game of Thrones that everybody talked about. And I thought, God, Godzilla should even went this far. You could actually see what the hell is going on. So at least it was more functional, if not clearer, to me. Well, I mean, again, not trying to troll, but just trying to point it out that it's watchable, more than some of the stuff that we are led to believe is really big and bad. So what do you think about that, Doctor?
I love as far as the battle and stuff. They kept accuracy of like the character as far as having the two swords. Each sword is for different creatures. Battling them is a different. They have different abilities.
Hmm.
We haven't really seen that much. You'll see in the second episode. He does mention that one of the swords is made out of silver. Um,
Right.
but yeah, but I mean, like, I love how they are taking this seriously. They're not just doing it and like just using it as a propaganda or political message. You know, like most plays. And there is smoke. There is. I believe there's smoking in this one too.
Well, I thought that I thought, and I'm just going to say it too, so you guys can comment on it as you see fit or anything else along this nature. But when I talk about the adult themes, I just don't mean that stark tone and all that, but the violence is good, and decent amounts of nudity, not necessarily gratuitous nudity, but one where you go, okay, it reminds me that it's like it. But I thought the two ladies in here were well done, and they're opposite sides of the coin as far as their looks and stuff. You've got Renfrey, who's dark, and of course, it's her men that were in the bar at the end, and she's got a bad side, but she seemed competent. Which I appreciate. So you can talk about being sexy, being functional, and all that. I thought she did, and then I thought Siri, as young as she is supposed to be, I can't really tell. She's got those big bug eyes, which we know is going to add up to something later. Probably being the same type of thing like a Witcher and all that. But she had a certain look to her. So I thought the women in here actually, especially even for a medieval setting and the way things go these days, treated them with respect or dignity. And that's coming out wrong, but I hate women that are just woe is me. I'm just an object there in the background. If you're going to be a part of the show, be a functional part of it. And you don't have to act like a man. You don't have to be a man, but just be strong, be independent. Just have your code, live with it. So, what do you think about that, Dalton? I mean, did that strike you as anything, or I mean, I don't know how much TV you're watching these days, but it popped out to me.
Yeah, he get popped out. You're gonna have to pull him back in.
Oh, okay. Well, you go ahead with that one. Well, I'll check him out.
As far as what was the question again? Sorry, I
Yeah,
was
how competent the women were.
the women here. No, they were.
You're back in,
They
Dalton.
were, as far as them being confident of their. I thought they did a pretty decent role. Like I said, like here, the grandmother series, she's the queen. Yeah, those are grandparents. I thought at first I thought I'm like, man, she's such a like a total B, and then you realize there was a reason why she did it. Because she first she was so hard on Siri, because Siri was like was running away, and she wanted to like play like a gambling game with the kids. Her grandfather, the king, would encouraged it and stuff.
Hmm.
He was instigator, and she didn't like that. But then we find out like towards the end of it, or like after the battle when it's off, she's sitting there with lying. She's told you to like, dude, like all you have to do is survive. It's like, but you gotta realize that every decision you make is not based on based on you. It's based on your people. You always care about your people first before you care about yourself. Um, so she turned out to be actually a decent person. It's just that when she came off angry, it's like you never met her before, so you didn't really know her personality, but got to realize that she's actually a great character, and it's sad to see the way that she went out. Same with the series grandfather, the king,
Hmm.
in the battle. Um, the mage. I love how serious character she's in there. She's like, she wanted to this piece. She's bored. She grabs the book out of his hand. She's like closes it. She's like, no, no, you guys are both boring. I want to leave. She's kind of spoiled, but then she kind of realizes as you see her like after she escapes this whole thing at the castle being run. It's this is an more adult oriented story because how dark it is. You see the guard, one of the guardsmen, the king's guardsmen, handing out these vials and saying like it's time for people, and they're obviously higher nobility, maybe servants for the crown,
Hmm.
and this basically just drinking these vials. It basically like kills them, poison. Um, and I think the reason I'm gonna speculation the reason why they did it is because of the fact they gotta protect Siri. They don't want anybody to know where Siri is, so
Exactly.
if there's no one to talk.
They can't get not
So
just tortured, but magicked into giving up any
and
information.
you feel the raw emotion of like the one guy, his wife. He's like, so can't we just we can run away? We don't have to take this. He's like, no, we gotta take it. And they both do it. And they said they lay down, they curl up together. The one guy actually takes his spoon or something and just jabs into his throat. But I was like, man, I was expecting that. I'm like, didn't you just take the poison, man, or is there enough for you?
Yeah, I was just about ready to.
So
Well, let me drag Dalton back down. He's having some connection issues. All right, so Dalton, I see that you're getting dropped and coming back. If you're in channel right now, I was just, well, he just got dropped again. Not sure what's going on. I'll tell you what. Why don't you give me your final thoughts here, and we'll see if Dalton can come in. Dalton, are you there? Nah, he keeps getting dropped. I don't know what's going on with that.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
it
let's go ahead with
might
your
be his
final
phone.
thoughts there, Doctor, and then I'll give mine.
Final thoughts on this? If like you said, if you love shows like this, like this is one of my favorites. The new series I'm gonna pick up. I'm actually gonna actually spend time watching this. Yeah, and my only complaint with this is that, and as much as I love it being an hour, if you're overtired, and you're gonna try and watch this, man. You're gonna fall asleep towards the end. It's like, you get it's an hour of just because there's a lot of information you got to take in, and I feel it's one of those things like those series where you have to pay attention to what's going on. If you miss one thing, you can get caught out of the loop. But other than that, I mean, I love the fact they're keeping on with the characters. Siri being as one of the big characters, Jennifer. We have the, Jennifer. They're introduced in the season two or episode two, same with Trish. But this first episode, like I said, like it's true and it sets up the story just enough where you kind of you're kind of hooked, you know, and see what's going on. You know, she's on her own at the end. Siri is like, you know, and she's like she's got to go find this guy. She's having a vision about this guy. She's got to find him. Um, Towards the end, I think it's I can't remember if it was the beginning of the second episode or end of the second. She she uh she meets someone, helps her out. She's
Well,
in the
Dalton,
field.
you're in here. We were doing our final thoughts. Hopefully, things are stable.
Yeah, sorry about
It's
that.
okay. Things
Technical
happen.
difficulties, guys.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. We were just wrapping up with our final thoughts. So, final thoughts on the first episode of The Witcher.
Um, it was pretty good. Episode one doesn't really contain enough quite to like distinguish it from other fantasy shows. You guys mentioned Game of Thrones a couple of times, and then you got into sort of what I would consider the episode's B plot with the noble characters and Ciri and that whole thing. Might be in the minority here, but I thought that the B plot made the episode drag. I really wish they had separated out, have the entire first episode be Geralt and his thing, and then have the second episode set up um, that whole plot, because I felt like switching back and forth between them, it kind of shortchanged both of them. Because you would just get into one plot and then it would switch over to the other plot, and it's like, okay, but why? Obviously, in later episodes, which I know we're not going into, it kind of explains that, but it's still like pick one and stick with it for a while, long enough for you to actually make some progress, because otherwise it's a little bit annoying.
Well, I'll
Yeah,
agree with you in the sense that the B plot, as you called it, with people are dying off and everything, it really didn't give you much time to get emotionally invested to care. Same thing with not having that much less time to care about Geralt and whether you like him or not. So I can understand that. If it has function later on, that's fine. I think for me the distracting thing, if I was brand new watching this, which other than playing the game I am, and not watching a ton of TV or movies, I'm going, okay, I don't really get the language. I don't get a lot of the names. So it's like, I understood what was going on, but this guy, that guy. So instead of remembering cool names the way they used them, I'm going, okay, the guy in the black suit, this and that can be distracting too, especially when you have two plots going on. But to your point, not having seen any more episodes, I think if it has a device for it later, obviously that's intentional. So hopefully it doesn't drag any future episodes down there too. Uh, so obviously you liked it. You think it's worth watching? I would say, Dalton. Fair enough.
It's worth watching, if not very distinct from other like dark fantasy shows. Obviously, with in a post Game of Thrones world, I guess to put it that way, it's very much the same as every other dark fantasy show that kind of tries to ride the wave of like Game of Thrones. And if that's your thing, then you'll enjoy it. If not, then this probably isn't, at least not as far as we have it yet. So yeah, if this is your kind of thing, then you'll like it fine. If not, then you might get into the characters. Although, the like I say, the jarring whiplash of Henry Cavill does make it difficult at times. So I guess that's my 2 cents on the matter.
Well, after seeing him, I'm convinced that the one fantasy property nobody's done, Elric of Melniboné, but with Michael Moorcock and the whole multiverse and the different characters that are all different sides can be done. So hopefully in the future will be something we can look forward to, because that's what this reminded me of. We can have a decent adult show, fantasy show to watch. It's not goofy and basically soap opera drama too much, at least so far. So Dalton, let everybody know what you do, how they can come watch and listen to you, all that stuff. Plug it.
Alrighty. Hi, folks. I am Dalton Mortimer. I am the Authenticator. My channel is called the Authenticator. I do quite a lot of random things. I do philosophy. I do magic and the occult. I do pop culture. I do kind of how all those three intersect. I regularly do a podcast with my friend, the Brainstormer of Pop Culture, over on his channel, Podcast at the Storm, which I will be doing here in about 15 minutes, actually. Um, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, then you can find your way over to my channel, which again is called The Authenticator, and you can follow me on Twitter at The Authenticator, but spelled without the U because Twitter is a bunch of morons and don't give you enough characters to put in your tag names. Other than that, you can find me just about everywhere on the internet at The Authenticator, just spelled normally.
Yeah, Dalton
Cheers,
likes to
guys.
hop on every now and then too, and that's we like having him on too. So I'm glad we are able to have you on tonight. I'm glad you're able to show up. If we do another one, obviously I'll let you know. If you're interested in coming on, we'll see how that goes. What about you, Doctor? You want to give a little sign off? You want to give your final diagnosis of the night?
My final diagnosis is that if you wanna learn about the mythos, talk to Dalton. He's the authenticator on that.
Yeah, magic is my thing, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna add this to the rotation of my show, A Mystics Vlogs, where I literally do go into sort of the mystical accuracies and the occult accuracies of pop culture. If you're interested in that, let me know. I've got such a backlog on my channel. I've got so many videos to do, just because every time I try to make a video, health issues come up, and it becomes a pain in every conceivable orifice.
Well, on that image alone, that very adult image, I'd like to thank you guys for showing up
Phrase it.
tonight. It was a lot of fun. Um, I enjoyed it. It's almost extreme, so I would definitely say check out the first episode, maybe one or two, and see if you like it. Obviously, Jay's a huge, massive fan on it. We'll see about getting Jay on for the next one that we do. If this one does well enough, I will more than likely, do the rest of the season because so far I've been entertained. And we're branching out a little bit into TV, and you'll see more of that here on the Extreme Movie Show. And always stay extreme, guys. Cheers, toodles, TTFN. Good night.
And stay extreme.
Good night.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.